Are we ready to go?
Looks like we
We're
are.
on it.
Yeah. Good. Well, welcome everybody. This is Town Hall number 4 for Concordium. I would like to, welcome you all. We'd like to call it the end of year Town Hall. It's been quite a year in many ways. For everybody new here, let me just quickly do an introduction of like who you basically see on the screen. Even though you can read, I'm pretty sure, at least I would expect you be able to read. But I'm just going to go what I'm seeing here. On the top left, you've got Mike, who's the Chief Commercial Officer. Give us a wave. Then we have Varun, our Chief Growth, Chief Marketing Officer, and of course you can see it on the hoodie. That's Pete, our CTO. I am Boris, the CEO, but generally you can refer to me as the janitor. Look, long story short, we had a quite crazy year on all fronts. I think we will dive deeper in quite a lot of those things. And we've also received a ton of questions, which we're going to answer towards the end. But before we're really going to dive in, you're going to hear from all the guys. I would like to kind of set a foundation of like what has happened this year. And I think, like I said, it's been a very profound one, I think, for not only for me and I think for the wider team, but also for the project as a whole. We set out at the beginning of the year to kind of do something transformative, and I think we've achieved this since the inception of Concordium. If you want to kind of sum it up, I think 3 words kind of stand out that we were able to kind of rebuild, that we were able to execute, which at the beginning of last year, I remember one of the first town halls and also like the entirety of speaking to the community. It wasn't necessarily, believed at the time that we can execute to the extent that I think we have proven to be done. And due to the fact of us having been able to execute, we were able to accelerate. Now, I'm saying this because normally everybody that's listening and also part of the community that is pinging me on a daily basis, I know that people are impatient. And it's a very, very old saying that Rome wasn't built in a day. In many ways, we were not able to undo the past, but what you've seen over the course of the last 3-4 months specifically should give you an enormous bullish feeling and an enormous boost with regards to what Concordium actually is here for to do. The last 3 quarters specifically have shown that we can accelerate on those achievements that we've done, and we're going to go into detail of them. I'm actually going to kind of highlight a couple of them. Now, we're now starting to also see the results, which is wonderful to see. I remember Town Hall number 2, everybody was like, where's Concordium going? What's going to happen? Look, I mean, I'm just going to state the obvious, even though, I'm not a massive fan of talking about, or I shouldn't be talking massively about price, but we're up like 220% on this year, while most of the industry is significantly down. Granted, we're a small fish in a big pond for now, but it should kind of give you that confidence with regards to what is actually possible. And one of the main reasons for this is of some of the key milestones that we've hit. We're now, I remember when we started, and I think you guys remember as well, when we started and we say we want to kind of become a credible and established chain in and around PayFi, people were like, yeah, good luck. How on earth are you going to do that? Simply if you look from a pure kind of marketing and positioning narrative perspective, if you go to Google right now and you Google PayFi, you will see us number 1 or number 2, together with Stella and a couple of others. That was not the case. The press didn't really talk about us. The press is now talking about us, left, right, and center. Opinion leaders of some sort. So if you think of like market analysts, like industry analysts, like Masari, I highly recommend that you read that report because it will give you a very good update and understanding of what we're actually achieving here. And the narrative that we crafted and that we wanted to put together is now consistent and it's out there, and allows us in order to build on top of it. So if I kind of think back, and I'm doing this with the guys here constantly. I'm sure they will smile and go like, "Oh my God, he's saying it again." People sometimes forget extremely quickly, right? If I'm thinking of where you or what you've done, whatever you do in your life, what you've done, where you have been like 3 months ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it is, and you kind of write down the circumstances that you found yourself in, and due to hard work of where you find yourself 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months later, you actually realize of how much progress you can make. And when we set out that we would like to have a lot of stable coins on the chain with the PLT standard that we were building, a lot of people went like, well, how are you going to get them? Of course, everybody was asking for Tether and Circle. But at the end of the day, I think the important thing is we now have 10 stablecoin issuers not only committed on the chain, we already have 10 PLTs across 5 currencies on mainnet. And I know many of these will be available on exchanges soon. You can only walk that fast. Now, what does that do? I think you've heard for anybody that's new here, but for anybody who's not, you have heard the whole topic about verify and pay, right? Using the Concordium chain in order to implement this across various use cases. You've seen a couple of go live. This is not like Amazon or the biggest players in the industry, but it was important for us in order to showcase it that it's possible. I think the verification angle is something that we're going to double down on, and we're going to talk about this a little bit further during the course of this town hall. So that's one side of the coin, right? To kind of build tools that you can build up on. But who are you going to do this with? And I think the very first kind of grassroots successes that we were able to kind of bring forward were the wallet providers that we kind of got ourselves in bed with, which is wonderful. And those are some of the biggest names in the industry. For now, you only know about Ledger and Bitcoin.com, as well as Safel Coin 98, some of the biggest in the industry, combined like over 100 million users. They have decided in order to import that technology and those tools in order to make it available to millions of users out there in an economy that is now, in a digital world. They believe in the fact that you shouldn't have to constantly onboard whatever service you take on. And this is where we kind of stand out. What else? New products. I mean, we've built new products that is available across devices right now. If you think of the ID app, for example, it's in the App Store and Play Store. Please, go and have a look. It's going to be one of the corner pieces, a part of the Concordium wallet for now, and then of course the wallets that we're rolling out with our partners here. That will enable this entire ecosystem in order to flourish. Now, Concordium Pay is also live. You maybe have seen it in some of those some of those videos. Actually, not demos anymore. It's actually live, and it's integrated into the UX. I think as an industry, to that point specifically, I'm saying it how it is. It's not the smoothest user experience right now, and you can say thank you to traditional financial institutions, which are playing absolute cock blocking in and around on-ramping. So, but something that we can solve. We have a couple of things in the pipeline on that front as well. Now, also, of course, like if we just think of the wider ecosystem, we had a massive gap with regards to accessibility into the ecosystem, such as, the US and the UK were left out. CCD accessibility, being the gas of the ecosystem, was a huge focus when I came in and when the guys came in. And in the last 6 months, we expanded literally for a global footprint. Kraken went live, Bitmart, Bitpanda, Mercado, BTC, and it was kind of setting the foundation specifically with Kraken, and also to kind of break into the tier ones as well. Which is an ongoing dialogue that we're having with all of them out there. But the important thing was that we made it accessible to millions out there. And that's literally what we've achieved to do. Now, obviously, having said all this, we're an industry which is very narrative driven. It was very important for us in order to kind of, highlight that our reach and brand presence is multiplied across channels, social content, press in a massive way. And Varun and the team have done a great job with regards to getting this done, and also like what you would consider grassroots right now, because once those multipliers, and Mike will talk more about this with regards to wallet partners, etc., where we suddenly plug into millions of users out there, will have this multiplier effect, and that will have a massive impact with regards to that groundwork that had to be done on that front. Overall, I think we kind of found ourselves in a position where we needed to kind of build a solid foundation to build upon. And for CCD holders for the last 4 or 5 years or whatever it is, I understand that you maybe go like, well, I want more, and I want, to my point earlier, Rome is not built in a day. But if you actually puzzle all those things together, and those things now about to go live over the course of Q1 next year, you kind of see that we have an opportunity to expand upon and multiply this in ways which I think wasn't really possible if we think about Town Hall number 1. So going into 2026, I'm going to speak to you later again, but I don't want to steal too much time with the guys. I'm personally moving into 2026 with enormous confidence. Every single day, every single minute that passes, having taken the decision like a little bit over a year ago to join the project, fills me with more confidence. It gives me more. I'm getting more drawn in, because I basically see that it's all happening. It's all coming together. It was kind of a blackboard exercise, basically around this time last year. The guys will remember. We were sitting in a dark room here in London, which still sucks, by the way, and it's raining and it's cold and it's windy. And we were sitting there going like, what are we going to do? And this next phase is about the use cases and the adoption to actually start scaling. So with that, to kind of get a better understanding of how we are planning to do this, I'd like to pass it over to the guys, and we're going to go into some more depth with regards to what I have mentioned and maybe all the stuff that I have missed. So I think, Mike, you're up in this case, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Boris. And yeah, guys, look, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending where you are. Really, today's a recap of 2025 and then a forward look on what are we focusing on 2026. So with that in mind, we're going to be covering off 2 broad areas. One, that recap of who we onboarded or partnered with 2025, and what is that commercial focus going to look like as we move into 2026. And then, as Boris mentioned there, the ecosystem development throughout the course of this year, and then a few sound bites about what it's going to look like coming into the new year. So, I mean, look, first thing I'd say is that it has been, at least in our opinion, probably one of the strongest years from a commercial traction perspective. But look, let's run through this from a time frame perspective as we've been through the year. So, look, starting with H1, Boris has already mentioned this. We're set out to be a pay-fi chain. In order to facilitate payments, we had to ensure that we had an array of stable coins on the chain, different currencies, etc., in order for participants to actually exchange value on Concordium. Boris mentioned it already, but we onboarded and actually went live with 10 stablecoin issuers who now actually have PLTs live on the chain. I mean, to name a couple, you've got Stabler, which MiCA compliant and tether-backed Euro and US dollar stablecoin issuer, but then also Spyco, for example, which is the largest non-US money market fund. And at this point, they have several hundred million. I think they actually exceeded 400 million AUM at this stage. So, look, that was very much February through till the end of H1. As we went into Q3, however, we needed to ensure that we actually had a viable method to distribute our solutions, specifically, and just to kind of recap for those who are just joining, Concordium's Verify and Access and Concordium's Verify and Pay, which, again, just quick recap, they're enabling users to anonymously verify any line item that actually sits on their ID card. So think age, for example, but then also subsequently make a payment which remains anonymous by the nature of the blockchain, but you can tie that payment back to the wallet from which the ID is tied. So that's the Verify and Access and Verify and Pay. Now, when you think about actually rolling that thing out into the market and looking at broader adoption, there's 2 sides of the puzzle to solve. One is the consumer distribution, and then the other side is the business distribution, right? So you've got who needs to verify, and then who needs to require or request verification in order to provide any products or services that they wish to. So if we take those piece by piece, we've got the consumer distribution. Boris has already alluded to this, but the question really was, how do you bring those solutions into environments or places where users already are? So with this, we partnered with the infrastructure providers that you guys have probably seen the announcements of. So Ledger, Bitcoin.com, both of which are going to enable their users to actually verify anonymously, the verify and access, using their current wallet, which they already have their assets in. And then, of course, subsequently, given the nature of the wallet, be able to make that payment to complete the verify and pay component. So that enables the consumer level distribution through actually going where the people already are, so to speak. Then on the business side, and to kind of call a spade here, there's no point in actually having a large user base wishing to verify their age or whatever other line item it may be if no businesses or merchants actually technically accept that form of verification. So the solution for us when we really analyzed the market was actually the payment service providers, the PSPs. So these guys are already accustomed to providing the Web2 equivalent solutions, right? The age verifying solutions into their merchants, especially those that are operate in age-gated markets, whatever it may be, gambling, gaming, adult, etc. What this means is we actually spent a lot of Q3 actually developing partnerships with those payment processors in order to leverage their client bases, which, just to be clear, consist of sort of thousands of merchants, websites, which are providing those age-gated products or services. So when you bring those two pillars together, you actually have a viable means to attract straight away into millions of consumers via the wallets, and then actually tapping into hundreds and thousands of merchants via actually just a handful of key payment processor partnerships. So you bring these two things together and you start to actually look like you've got a real ecosystem, right? And that's all relatively resource light on the Concordium side as well. Once these things are set up, you already have access to those user bases and you've got what's effectively called distribution. Now, that was Q3. So H1, getting the stable coins in place. We've got a means to actually exchange value. Q3, solving for the distribution angle, both on the consumer and on the business side. And then really the most exciting part from at least my perspective was what I'd kind of put under the umbrella of real proof of concept. You know, we spent a lot of time in the first kind of half of the year talking about real world adoption of blockchain use cases. And in Q4, we're actually able to put our money where our mouths are and actually have the first age verification solutions go live. One, which was via SoSpoil, which is an adult content provider, and the other one via AWC, which is a wine merchant. Both of these are actually live today for consumers to actually go and verify in a compliant manner, I will add, which is a huge milestone for the project to get that seal of approval, so to speak, to verify one's age actually using the blockchain. So we're actually able to put our money where our mouths are and actually deliver on those real world adoption sound bites. And look, whilst I think Boris mentioned this himself as well, these aren't, you know, huge merchants or brand names or anything else. What they are is proof of concept and unlocks for everything else that sits behind this. And ultimately, you know, we couldn't be more grateful for those partners to actually go first and take the chance on us, because that's yeah, I mean, how many projects actually sit out there and say, yeah, real world regulation, we're compliant with that, and it's being used, and it doesn't happen like in this space. There's a lot of noise, a lot of headlines, a lot of PR, but to actually be able to say we've delivered on this, it's something totally different, actually. Now, as we think about next year, moving into 2026, I'd say, how do I word this? We're focused on moving away from establishing those foundational partners and pilots and everything else that we've been doing this year, the hard yards, so to speak, that have been put in 2025, to actually moving towards adoption, mass adoption. How do we actually get this thing used by hundreds of thousands or millions of users? And that's the big challenge in front of us as moving to 2026. So what our focus will be and what our priority will be is actually industries where verification is no longer optional. So, for example, sticking with that age-restricted, content-regulated digital commerce, gaming, whatever it may be, stuff where there's a tailwind. So to be a little bit more specific, we are seeing regulation similar to the OSA, the Online Safety Act over here in the UK, actually being enforced in other regions. And ultimately, when that happens, it causes and anyone who's sat dialing in from a country that's been impacted this will have experienced it. It kind of sets you up and goes like the status quo has changed. There's an aha moment. All of a sudden, you're actually being asked to verify with a passport or by turning your cam on and doing an AI-based face estimation or whatever it may be. There's a shock to the status quo, and it happens in a very overnight, quite literally, manner when the enforcement kicks in from a regulatory perspective. So I suppose to be a little bit more specific and add a good example of what that looks like is if you actually look over in Latin America right now, Brazil have passed regulation for this to actually go into force in March, whereby anyone in Brazil who's accessing sensitive content online that would be required for 18 plus is actually going to have to demonstrate that they are in one way or another. And this is where Concordium come in, right? This is what 2026 looks like. You can do that horizon scanning, so to speak, and actually see where regulation is taking hold, where there's, that pain point's coming in March. There's going to be millions of people who log onto the laptop that day, and they're going to be asked to do something they've never had to be done before. And that's where it creates the opportunity for us, and that's where there's an opportunity for adoption. So for us, this is very much what 2026 is going to look like. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much it, guys. To be honest with you, on the 2026 highlight, it's more of the same. It's moving past the pilots, it's moving into adoption, and really, there's a very strategic and precise way to do that, and the regulation provides a tailwind for us. So if I move away from what I kind of put under the kind of quote unquote commercial strategy and just do a quick recap of the ecosystem development, and Boris alluded to this as well, but for those who followed the project for some time, you'll know how difficult it was to actually access CCD, right? Buying, selling, holding, staking, whatever it may be. It was all challenging. And often, unfortunately, it meant that you had to interact with non-brand names, let's kind of word it this way. Throughout 2025, we've actually worked to dramatically improve this. And not just because of the CCD price and everything else, but ultimately, if this thing is going to power the network, that's what's ultimately going to be the gas for the chain, right? If you want to verify your age or whatever it may be, or a merchant or a PSP wants to integrate this thing, then ultimately someone's going to have to hold CCD. And if that thing's not accessible in an easy manner with names that you can trust, then we're going to have an uphill struggle nonetheless. So throughout the course of 2025, we secured listings. I think Boris mentioned a couple of these, but Kraken, Bitpanda, Bitmart, Mercado, all expanding significantly the accessibility of CCD. And actually, if you think about the market it opens, and I don't know how firmly Boris mentioned this earlier on, I can't recall, but actually, if you rewind even 7 months, you couldn't even buy CCD or access the infrastructure or the ecosystem within the UK, within the US. These are massive markets, and we had to open them up. We have, and there's going to be a little bit more of that coming in Q1. I mean, maybe a slight teaser there as well. We do have a few announcements that are coming very soon, and what I will say for now is that there are some tier one names that are in there, right? You're going to recognize some of these things that are coming, but look, more of that to follow. There'll be a Q1 town hall or something similar, I imagine. So you guys will see more of this to come shortly if it's not announced ahead of time. So look, that's on the listing side. That's been quite dramatic. Away from this, I mean, look, it goes without saying, but if you're buying something, you need to be able to hold something. So the partnerships with Bitcoin.com, with Ledger, yes, they serve as great distribution partners for the underlying capabilities of the chain, but they also provide a very convenient and mass market distribution, at least in the industry, for those who want to be able to on-ramp, fiat purchase, etc. So yeah, we had these go live, not to mention Coin98 and Safel as well. Then away from this, if you actually look at, I suppose, sweating that asset, you've got the staking side. Now, today, you've got Figment and Luganodes there. They're two of the biggest names that are in the ecosystem, or in Web3 at least, from a staking provider perspective. And then the last piece there is actually just from a fiat on and off ramp side, is that you have Banxa and Transact. Again, these are two of the biggest fiat on and off ramps in the world. I know Banxa actually got acquired not so long back by BitGet. And yeah, look, these again are all trusted names. Kraken, Luganodes, Figment, Banxa, Transact. These are all names that anyone who's in Web3 in a serious way recognizes. And now we have every single one of these. So it's been a material difference. And look, I think from my perspective, and just to kind of sum it up and tail off here, I feel quite comfortable saying that if you look at our ecosystem today, that this is a strong ecosystem that's really, I suppose, punching above the weight of the size of the project that we are from a pure market cap perspective. Not many names that are associated with the kind of price levels that projects experienced over the course of the last 12 months can boast those sort of brand names. So for me, bar a few very specific additions that we'll add, which again, more to follow in the new year. Very pleased with the progress on this side and on the commercial development overall. The traction's really there, guys. The feedback's consistent. We have something that's unique, and we've got the tailwinds to kind of back it up, right? From a reg perspective, there's a moment in time where Concordium makes complete sense, and it's now. So, I mean, look, with that, let me hand over to Pete. He's going to tell you a lot more on the tech side.
I think my mic is still. Can you hear me?
You're good.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, awesome. Good morning, beautiful people. Thanks for that, Mike. Let me give you a bit of a kind of a view on where we've been on the tech side. And yeah, we have done a tremendous amount in a very short period of time as a team. And I'll try to rattle on a few of them that we've pulled off, and Boris is smiling. But yeah, we have done a lot. Yeah, I know more. But look, let me give you an idea of where we're at. Let's start with the Concordium ID, right? That was kind of the original design. That's our uniqueness. That's kind of what's in the chain. It allows us to do all the verification. It's the backbone of our verify and pay and verify and access. And what we've managed to do is kind of highlight it and bring it out. So we've built the ID app. It's already kind of live. It's in the iOS and Android marketplaces. And we do have a new version coming out imminently. It's on its way to the stores as we speak. So check in a couple of days and you shall see a new version. It's got feedback in it. It does things better. It's even got a better UX. So we've made a tremendous achievement on getting that out there. It's still your identity in a privacy preserving manner, right? That sets us up for everything that we got going. On the other hand, as the guys mentioned, we have our PLTs, protocol level tokens, right? And when we set out at the beginning of the year, we said we wanted to mitigate that risk of smart contracts. We didn't want to have honeypots existing. We didn't want to hear about some other hack that somebody had done, whether that was social engineering, whether that was a flaw in the code or anything like that. This is at the protocol level. You hold your tokens in your wallet. It never leaves. That's a fundamental thing to say. A lot of places, you kind of take that for granted. It's the equivalent of you taking the money out of your wallet and giving it to your mate who's holding a whole bunch of other people's money, right? If he goes, then your money goes, irrelevant of what they say. Protocol level tokens allow you to kind of keep custody of it. And it kind of, again, is at the base layer right next to the identity. Right, and we built that. We set out to do it. We built it. We launched it on our DevNet all the way to mainnet. And as Mike said, we've had lots of people come in, 10 stablecoin issuers who've taken that on. We're in the process of actually upgrading our bridges as well to use the PLTs and a few other projects which are coming along the way. Those two fundamental things lay us up for verify and pay. That's kind of what we said we were going to go out there and do it. It sets us the ability to do verification that you are at a certain age or geolocation or whatever it may be, and you do that without giving all your information away, and you pay in a PLT, all within your wallet and your keeping custody of it. It sets us up, and we managed to go live with it. Just before that as well, we've got our verify and access, which is linked to our identity. The ID app can do it, our wallets can do it, and our third parties who are integrating with us can do it. And we'll tell you a little bit about that as well. All of this has been and gone and seen and reviewed by the regulator as well, which has given us kind of no reason to think that it's not suitable, that it isn't kind of blocked in any shape or form. We have a very unique way of making it scalable. Right, if we just go back to the tech a little bit, our verification is done by the device that the identity is in, which is usually your laptop or your phone, which is very fast, right? Then the verification is also done on servers, which are very fast. It is checked against what we have on the chain, so it's a very quick read, and the chain exists to give it that immutability, right? I can't change my date of birth on my device. I can't fake it. I can't kind of dispute it or anything like that, or kind of trick the merchants that have implemented this verification process. On top of that, we have the ability to put anchors for our audits. So the regulator can see that this is what's happening. So if I ever want to investigate because I got a complaint or something, I can quickly take a look at a public chain and see that yes, this merchant is indeed placing their audits on the chain. All of this without giving any of your identity away, without giving any of your information away, completely privacy preserving from your identity point of view. And that's a massive statement to say and be able to kind of do it. All of this requires development tools, which is exactly where our focus has been throughout this whole time as we've been building. We've got better SDKs, we've got better documentations, we've got better ways of integrating with us, we've got plugins that we've produced and out there, and there's more coming around the corner, so watch this space again. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to implement the verification or verify and access or verify and pay into their ecosystems. Mike kind of mentioned already that we got PSPs that we're integrating with. That's one angle. We will also want to make it as simple as possible for anybody who's got a website to be able to implement the verify and access ability, and what we've done. On top of that, we were kind of had this notion out there that we were going to launch our DevNet and allow builders to come and interact with us at a very early stage to kind of get their feedback. So we build with them. We did that for the PLTs at a great success. We went all the way to mainnet. We now done it again for the next phase of that's coming around the corner with sponsored transactions, which is a great ability that we've put out there. So if you haven't logged on to DevNet and if you haven't registered, please do so. It's available. Go and look at our Discord channels to know how to come on board. All of this has led to the ability to have the following partners. We have, Saffold, Coin98, Ledger, Bitcoin.com. All of these partners have used our development tools. They've used our ID app to allow things to happen. They have the ability to hold CCDs, PLTs, use our kind of identity for PayFi. It's a great achievement for less than a year. I just want to kind of put that out there, right? Less than 12 months, we've managed to achieve all of this. And on top of that, we've got the hackathon that we did, which was a great success. Lots of people turn up, lots of interest in what we do and how we do. And, the majority kind of feedback that we got was, wow, what a unique way of doing what you guys are doing. And again, just to kind of go back on the verification aspect of it, a lot of chains aren't scalable. A lot of implementations are kind of using a smart contract, which does get bogged down with load and traffic and fees going up. We don't have any of those issues, right? Our chain was literally made for this. And we've proven it by building it in the way and kind of going live with the use cases that we've had. And of course, we've got the merchants that actually did go live. And yeah, thank you for them for believing in us and doing it. And to be honest, we're carrying on getting more and more merchants on board. As we speak, conversations are taking place and people are building and implementing this into their ecosystem, which is fantastic news. All of this basically is us setting ourselves up for PayFi, right? Smart money use cases, here we come. Now, let me just do a little quick recap between the first 6 months and the kind of second 6 months of the year and kind of what the difference was, right? First 6 months was very much about building the PLTs, getting the Concordium ID out there, kind of getting an understanding of what the verification process would look like, and wallet integrations. That's kind of what we did, and we set out to do it, which is great. The last 6 months has been very much about just rolling that out. So getting the proof of concepts out there, making it easy for people to integrate. And the hackathon, as I mentioned earlier, was to kind of allow people to interact, use, and kind of get an idea of how easy it is to implement all of this, right? Now, that's kind of what 2026 is all going to be, is about getting this out there, making it as easy as possible for people to use, and kind of have a nice and simple ecosystem that it doesn't matter where you enter into it, you can reuse your identity in lots of different use cases and lots of different places. Saying that, I guess I'll hand over to Varun, who can give us more details of how the growth is going to happen.
Cool. Thank you, Peter. First of all, I need to change the order. It's so much pressure going out last with so many good updates. And even though kind of I work with these guys on a day-to-day basis, I think to Boris's point, we forget, right? So much has been achieved. So yeah, I've made a note for the next town hall to probably go first and put the pressure on these guys. Yeah, 2025 was literally a year of reset, and I would call rebirth of project and the brand. I think it was very important to clarify who we are, what we do, what is our proposition, and make sure the world understands that in a consistent and coherent manner. And that's a very simple thing to say, but very hard to do because most of the brand's projects go wrong on that. And I think Boris talked about like this amazing saying, like Rome wasn't built in a day, but I would say while we haven't built in a day, we have damn good foundations now. We're built faster than anybody else in the industry under the constraints, to Mike's point, of we are operating on. We're not like a billion-dollar treasury chain today, but I think it's fantastic to see what we've achieved. I think for me, the key highlights was one, the narrative. I think establishing ourselves as a credible PayFi chain alongside the more established players like Stellar, Ripple, and many others who've been in this space for quite some time and doing that within a span of less than a year, to the point that when Misari talks about you or the press talks about you, they all talk about you as a credible PayFi alternative, which I think is fantastic. Or how exchanges talk about us, they all again talk about it in the same way. So it's very good to get that trust and credibility built pretty soon and pretty quickly. And also, the icing on the cake. Anybody searching for PayFi, like Boris said, we're either number one or number two, depends on what you've been searching in the past, what your browsing pattern and cookies look like. And I think all of this has been achieved by actually being very, very thorough and very, very clear on what we were doing, what we wanted our partners to sort of reflect upon, and actually working very, very closely with them. As with any other blockchain ecosystem, it's very much around like what the ecosystem talks about you. And it was really, really important to have those relationships built in early and to make sure we're getting the right story out. So that was pretty good. I think those who've been in the community will remember we launched a new website as a part of showcasing the new narrative. And in Web3, where I think a lot of us have spent many, many years, the website is a very important product for the organization and for the blockchain, because it provides the opportunity for audiences to learn about the project. It provides an opportunities to builders to come and experience and get to what they want to understand. But also, it's a great opportunity for anybody else who's looking to see where this project is going, what it solves for, is being done. Also, quantitatively, the old website wasn't serving any business needs and the metrics we care about. So it's very good to say. Actually, I can't share much of the stats, but I can give some references which helps you understand. So just purely the traffic on the website is almost 10 times since we launched back in late March, early April. US and UK, which are very big target geographies for us, I think to Mike's point earlier, have actually become the biggest markets for our website. So it's great because these ultimately become the users who will use the technology, across merchants, across otherwise. And engagement on site is the highest ever. I was literally looking at the stats this morning to say, and I was pleasantly surprised that the content is doing a great job. And now on socials and content, our X has had a huge turnaround story from zero engagement, literally 12 months back. We are one of the prominent voices on topics like identity, verification, stablecoin, payments. Engagement is almost 20, sometimes 30 times higher than it was the same time in 2024. So literally December 2024 to 2025, we're almost 20 to 30 times bigger. I know a lot of you join the X Spaces that we do with partners, collaborators. We've done one recently with Misari. There are lots of X Spaces exchanges do that invite us. In pure numbers, we've done more than what we've done as a project in the past, which is pretty amazing. And it's very, very good to always see that incredible number of audiences who attend that, and that number keeps going up, which I think is fantastic. Our blogs are doing great. It's not just the frequency we care about, which is important, right? Like pushing 2 stories out every week is a hard task, right? Not many chains can actually do that. It's great we have the ingredients, but it's also great we are able to get the story out. But also the quality, right? Our Medium posts are getting great engagements. A lot of these blogs actually get picked up by KOLs on X and get reposted, which is a great stamp of good content. We recently launched Smart Money Voices just last month to provide an opportunity for people who have been in the industry, know the space, to come and talk about why Concordium as a chain is solving real big problems, which nobody else is doing. And that has taken a very different, page altogether. There's a huge pipeline, huge traction on that. So it's fantastic to see, like, all of these things. I know a question which always comes: what are we doing on the press? Why are nobody covering us? And I think people who've seen this year would have seen we are now regularly being featured in tier 1 publications. Literally last week, I'm sure you've all seen the X402 and Concordium partnership being announced by Cointelegraph as a great solution to the problems that would come up and will become really, really important as agentic payments scale. But just purely in numbers, we've had 411 unique pieces of coverage since March of this year, just like within the span of 9 months. And obviously, Messari talking about it, all of those other things, the blog talking about it is completely a great thing. There's so much I can talk about, but I'm conscious of time, and I want to just give a few thoughts on 2026. I think Mike talked about it quite extensively, so I'll keep it very brief. 2026 is very much around adoption, so we can basically double down and scale user growth to get millions of users to start using Verify and Access, Verify and Pay. So what you would expect: massive push with our partners, Ledger, Bitcoin.com, Kraken. There are deep partnerships. These are not just like sort of token availability. Actually, these are deep partnerships. As integrations go live, we will double down on scaling user growth. Many use cases are being rolled out, and there are huge efforts already to double down on those partner growth also. So expect a lot of that. And then, of course, Concordium ID, which is a fantastic mobile app. And Peter talked about, like, the recent upgrade and update, which has just been pushed out and is coming, I think, next couple of days. We'll also double down on extending distribution and access of that, right? Get more users to be aware of it and see value in that. Now, just very topical, most of the people would have heard the news about social media age verification requirements now being enforced in Australia today, right? Now, that itself is a 20 million users being affected, and every social media company probably in the world is thinking about it. And we have a fantastic solution, which does not intrude user privacy, does not create a reputational problem with data risk, as we saw from Discord hacks earlier this year, but also provide a very compliant and open auditable experience for regulators to be certain that actually it's done in a great way. So I think if 2025 was great, I think 2026 is even more ambitious. So I think I'm personally very, very excited. So yeah, over to you, Boris.
I think I'm muted. Yeah, can you hear me now? The host is unmuting me. I thought I'm the host. Look, guys, I was sitting here kind of thinking about everything that you just heard, right? Also partially because I think you're sitting here thinking, oh yeah, the guy's gonna have, like, in the last town hall, a massive announcement. That's a complete waste of fucking time right now. I'm telling you how it is with what the market is experiencing right now. We actually tried it last week with the X402 stuff, together with the Coinbase developer portal and like agentic payments, AI. Everybody's talking about it. Did fuck all. Everybody's just sitting on their fingers right now. Everybody's sitting in stables, just waiting on what's going to happen. And I think it's quite important in order to put a little, like, my viewpoint of this, right? I think what we've seen makes, from a macro perspective, no sense. The only indicator that hit was this stupid 4-year cycle crap, right? And that kind of was the only one that kind of hit on time. What I'm trying to say here is, if you want to boil down, because you hear Concordium ID app, you hear PayFi, you hear Verify and Pay, Verify and Access. I think the verification piece is the most important puzzle piece. I have been in this industry for a long time, right? And what it ultimately came down to, I'm getting messages here right now. We need to start with the Q&A. This is a very important message that I just want to put out. I'm going to start the Q&A. Give me a second. Is one of the core things that is missing in this industry is users. Everybody's sitting there and is talking about user adoption in the real world, day to day. How are you getting this in? But ask yourself this. Go and ask your auntie. Go and ask your mummy. Go and ask your sister. Go and ask anybody who maybe you know is not in this industry. And what I mean there is this wonderful word from Web 2 to Web 3. And what I'm trying to say here is, as long as you kind of go down the route of having to explain to somebody what a mnemonic seed phrase is, and like public addresses and private keys with alphanumerical strings, and if you lose the 24 words, you're gone and your money is gone. Like, nobody's going to use this stuff. Like, that is a fact, right? So ultimately what it comes down to is that you need to find a way of, number one, a project that kind of solves for user adoption in a way where you don't try to ram down people's throat the idea of money Lego and yield farming down some DeFi pool because it has been existing now for 4 years and the market cap is high. You're not going to get users on. The average DApp users over the course of the last 4 years has stayed stagnant. There are no new people in there. That's the important thing. Everybody's talking about tokenization, and that makes a lot of sense. But only if you're able to integrate it to your existing brokerage accounts, which means the banks need to be there, right? So what I'm trying to say here is, when you think of Concordium and you hear all those words, it ultimately comes down to the fact of bringing users into an ecosystem without them knowing that they're now suddenly in a blockchain world. That's what the game is. The game is, what you then can do is that you can basically come down the road and say, if you are, and this is where we say thank you to the partners that we have, because they have that foresight. If you think of Bitcoin.com, if you think of Ledger, they're going to go like, well, I don't know where the growth is going to come from. Great, Bitcoin can maybe double, can maybe 10, like if you think of Jack Marlow or whoever, like Kathy Wood said yesterday, just 5 minutes ago, she basically came out and said like, oh, it's going to be a mega cycle and it's going to be, we're back on the 2 million track. Come on, man. Like, I'm getting very bored about this, very bored. It ultimately comes down to the fact of how can you give something to an everyday user and bring him into a world that he's not aware of changing his existing habits. Because if you would rock up and you try to ask him that if he bought some Apple shares on a brokerage account, or if he paid for a coffee at Starbucks, and you ask him of the process that happens behind the scenes, he has no bloody clue of how it works. That's the fact. If you now overlay the complexities of blockchain to it, you will not get user adoption. That's just a fact, right? So those partners that are bringing that in, you can then start to cross-sell, upsell, and basically enable Bitcoin.com and enable Ledger in order to become a player where they can use the devices in everyday interactions to pay for stuff, as simple as, right? And which is where we did what we did, right? And also, like, big announcements right now where there is this uncertainty and everybody is scared of the big bad bear, which in my opinion is, by the way, total bullshit. This is going to bounce back, and it's going to bounce back hard. And there are a lot of opinions of why not. We can talk into dollar liquidity, and we can talk about, the reverse repos having been drained, and like all this stuff that you can listen about hours on if you switch on Bloomberg, even though they very, the press is very, very good at, once it's a little bit down, everybody jumps on a thing. It's over. It's over. Absolute bollocks. And ultimately, for me and for us, it is important that we kind of figure out, in order to become a foundation that is not just hemorrhaging money, right? If you go down the route of, like, if there are some hardcore crypto guys in this town hall right now, they might be very happy and say like, well, this is not true because I'm making 40% of my yield farming down some. Yeah, if you would actually know of how this is being done, how it's being subsidized, there is a reason why the valuations roughly stay the same. I'm going to call out Solana on this front, quite frankly, right? It's a great project. No Anatoly from early days, right? But ultimately it came down to the fact, look at what happened. It was 70 billion valuation at $200, nearly $300. It's 70 billion valuation at $130. Like, what do you think the next thing is going to be? What I'm trying to get to at is here, if we really want to move forward as an industry, we need to kind of step away from the thought process of trying to do the DeFi crypto native stuff, that's a very finite resource, and it's going to take far longer than you actually want it to be if you are believing in the idea of DLT, in the idea of blockchain technology to be applied into everyday life. And then all the wonderful things that we built, by the way, suddenly start to make sense, right? And that we're doubling down on. The locking mechanisms, right? I'm a massive believer that the time value of money, if I think of a rental agreement, why the hell would I need to send somebody cash that sits in a bank account for 3 years that I'm not getting paid on any yield, in theory, right? That I'm not getting paid on in any shape or form. And subsequently, 2 years later, and it's done in a currency that does nothing else but depreciate in value, which is why the crypto industry exists in the first place. And if you kind of puzzle those things together, if you hear ID app, if you hear verify and pay, if you hear verify and access, right? We're not talking, when we talk about verify and access, there is no stable coin involved. It's literally just you interacting in a digital world in a fully privacy preserving way. Something that Varun didn't mention is the fact that if you go and search on CoinGecko or wherever, we're listed under the privacy side of things, top 5, but done in the correct way, not anonymity. I don't think that's not going to fly from a regulatory perspective. Privacy, however, as long as you stay compliant, that flies, which is the reason why we got, the nods and the thumbs up from regulators to get like, please go ahead. So I just wanted to quickly say this. I have no idea. I've seen the chat kind of flare up here. I would like to take a couple of questions. Do we have time for this or not? But I just wanted to kind of round this off because number one, I'm extremely proud of the entire team. You know, the guys here, everybody, not just these guys that you see here. Everybody has been working fucking 16, 20-hour days in order to make sure that we get something out in a very short time. And all the stuff that is not announced yet, because right now announcing stuff is like you shooting yourself in the kneecap. Makes no sense, right? So ultimately, what I'm trying to say here is also a massive thank you to everybody. Not only, and it's also down to the community now, right? Because I'm getting the messages of like, oh my God, the price is down. Like, who? Like, honestly, like, do your research, look at all the projects, figure out what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And yeah, look, I'm always getting very, very, emotional about those things because it just doesn't make sense to me that we still try to beat this dead horse of like going, you can draw a mortgage next year from a DeFi pool. It's just not happening. So I just wanted to say this out loud. Couple of questions. I'm gonna read a couple, and guys, if you're all unmuted, please unmute yourself, and I'm going to look at Varun. You just stop me, okay? Is everybody unmuted?
Yeah.
Yeah? So you just stop me when we run out of time, because I see like there's a ton of questions that basically came in. I'm going to, holy shit, there are many more coming right now.
And I think there is one on screen already.
There is one on screen already?
Yeah.
First of all, I want to comment the Concordium impressive work accomplishments into looking ahead. Concordium positions itself as a non-profit decentralized blockchain that remains independent of big tech companies and governments. ... Where's the question? I mean, first and foremost, that is, I tell you, at our first town hall, we didn't get bloody congratulations. Like that for sure didn't happen. Is this question? How do you see Concordium becoming an essential gear in the future financial system, and how can states adopt it without claiming control over it? Look, again, verify and pay, verify and access. Look it through it. The privacy-preserving nature is the core. If you think of Concordium, and if you think of privacy, like everybody has been talking about privacy for the last 2 months. Once Bitcoin started shitting the bed, everybody then started fleeing into Zcash. And everybody was like, oh, Zcash is going, and Arthur Hayes was going like, yeah, this is the future and we cannot let go of the thing. Guys, there is a balance, right? Either you adopt privacy in order to satisfy the needs of the crypto community and the core ethos of why also I am in this industry. And if you don't adopt it at all, you don't have users, right? But there is a middle ground between what you need to do ultimately in order to get regulators and institutions on board. Because the matter of the fact is, no regulator is just going to go around the world, you know what, the KYC and AML stuff, fuck it, YOLO, let's just have fun. Like this is just not going to happen, right? and waiting for the fact of all the world economies blowing up. Given now that everybody wanted the institutionalization of crypto, coming back to the point that I wanted to make earlier, Bitcoin starting to come down in price was not down to the fact that people lost faith in what Bitcoin ultimately stands for. It is a basis trade between the ETF and the CME. And the biggest players were Millennium, Brevin Howard. Those were the guys that were doing this in the billions because it was free money. Once that gap closed, they sell the ETF. And once they sell the ETF, BlackRock needs to do something, right? They need to redeem. So you need to kind of peel behind all the noise. So when it comes to Concordium, the way that we implemented it, we wanted to keep it with the core ethos in place in terms of privacy, user privacy preservation. So how can that be adopted? You tell me. Look at the use cases that we actually went live. Granted, it's not the, I don't know, the NSA, but ultimately it's working. That's the important bit here. Can we get more investment funds or TradFi institutions to strategically allocate CCD? So I guess this is not just speculation, also anticipation, also anticipating their adoption later. I'll take this. Sure, of course. I mean, you've seen the whole thing with Hilbert, which I guess is what you are referring here. Nasdaq listed, amazing asset manager. Yeah, I mean, they've done their DD, they looked at it and they said, like, this makes sense. So this is not just speculation. There is a network behind this with regards to why the partners that we're speaking with right now that, like I say, are not announced yet. So let's kind of say, yes, it's coming. Hi, have you contacted Pornhub UK? Good. Are they considering using Concordium? Are there any agreements or discussions with major companies? Mikey, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, sure. So look, I think I say this on every single town hall, or at least the last 4. I am never going to comment on ongoing commercial engagements. Not professional, nor would it serve our purpose when it comes to actually successfully delivering on said partnership. That being said, you've obviously got the gist by now of everything that we're doing, everything we're announcing, and everything that we've said today, that we are indeed providing an innovative solution to the adult content market. So to leave out Pornhub from that cohort, that prospect list, would be quite stupid from our perspective. So yeah, like, that's all I'm going to say on this one.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I can actually see I don't need to flick between the things. Those questions are coming up. Technology. Instead of writing an own DEX or borrow lending platform, it could make sense to integrate with existing services like Uniswap or Aave. Is there any collaboration planned or ongoing? Who wants to take this?
I can take that one.
Okay.
I'm going to start by saying the same thing again. So again,
is that why I wanted to take it?
This is a great Q&A session.
Yeah,
in the bear market.
Exactly. I'm not going to comment on ongoing conversations. Look, what I can say is, and it's quite interesting if you actually look out there in the market. I mean, you reference Aave, so let me comment on this one. You can actually see that Aave and similar platforms are actually starting to offer incentives, dollar incentives for the users to actually provide ID. And there's a reason that they do this, right? So you can naturally think about where our head goes in terms of, should you use Concordium to actually facilitate said ID checks? It actually unlocks quite interesting use cases from those that are allocating the marketing dollars on these platforms. If you think about being able to do geo-specific marketing campaigns, incentives, assess the ROI on various spend, whatever it may be, there is a trend there. You can see these platforms that have been previously entirely anonymous now starting to incentivize users to do ID checks, and ID sits at the core of what we do. So we'll continue to explore these and keep you guys posted, but I'm not going to comment on specific engagements.
Sometimes I really wish you would, to be honest. So we can have a Christmas without stupid ass questions. But anyways, how does Concordium plan to differentiate itself from other layer 1 blockchains in 2026?
I'll pick this up. So great question. In my opinion, the L1 market is oversaturated. However, most L1s are not capable or set up to solve real world problems. You cannot operate in this real world without having identity frameworks or have gas fees, which are unpredictable because of network congestion, or reliance on potentially insecure smart contracts, which most of the world does not even understand, right? Like if you move out of our crypto island. Now, if you think about how Concordium has been fundamentally designed with ID layer at protocol level, we have now with the great work being done, the ability for stablecoins to be issued on chain directly in your wallets rather than on smart contracts. And I think Peter talked about the fees is pegged to a fiat and it stays there, right? So all transactions as a Web2 business, you know what it's going to cost, right? We don't compete on vanity metrics. We are not interested in having 1 million TPS when the world doesn't need 1 million TPS, right? Now, having been in the industry, I can confidently say, and I think it's a good challenge for anyone, point a chain and an infrastructure project which can do all of this, right? Like, and scale. And you would say, we don't need to compete. We actually are very well positioned with the infrastructure work, which we have done also this year, to actually solve this problem in a very unique way. So pretty excited about it, actually.
Good questions coming through, I have to say. Also live. How many concrete projects, institutions are there today that generate revenue through Concordium or enter the regulated market? Could you name 2 or 3 of them to briefly explain what they do? Mike?
Yeah, that sounds commercial, doesn't it? So look, there's a lot of things. Boris mentioned this earlier on. There's a lot of things we haven't announced yet, so I'm not going to give a total count, because you guys are going to see this for yourselves, and you can kind of count them up on the old abacus as they come through. That being said, maybe I can give you an example of, if you want to understand the business model, why people are building and how that translates through into their economics. So if you take a simple example of what we have announced, which is payment processors, Rocket Fuel, for example, providing age verification solution through into one of their underlying adult content merchants. So if you think about what's actually happening there and what are the incentives to the partners and what are the economics. So for the PSP, so first of all, like first things first, they're able to actually offer something that's differentiated to their merchant. If you think about, I mean, there was an article in the FT, I think about 6 weeks ago, that a lot, since the Online Safety Act was enforced, a lot of the adult sites have actually seen, I think it was about a 30% reduction in traffic. Now, if you think about the nature of that business, a 30% reduction in traffic is going to be a direct hit to revenue, right? There's free content and then people are cross-sold paid content. So first of all, the PSP gets to actually offer an innovative, differentiated solution through to the merchants that reduces that churn, that reduces that drop-off in traffic. That in turn means that the adult content provider is going to be able to increase their revenue profile. And when their revenue profile increases as a consequence of the traffic being higher, it means that the volume of payments that adult content provider is receiving is going to increase, right? By the definition of how the revenue is coming in. Now, the payment service provider is the one who's actually processing those payments, and they're taking a percentage of those payments. So the revenue profile is going to be increasing for the merchant, increasing for the PSP. That's on kind of the upside revenue scenario. And if you then just take a really blunt comparison from a cost-based perspective, a lot of those PSPs are already, or the payment service providers are already providing age verification solutions or distributing age verification solutions into their merchants. Now, there's quite a wide spread on this, but if you take an average cost of those solutions, they're usually in around that 10 cents mark, give or take, right? Some are 15, some are 8, but 10 cents is pretty much an industry average. If you look at what these people are actually paying for the identity checks, on Concordium, it's 1 cent. So straight away, no matter how you kind of carve that, you've got about a 90% reduction in cost alone. That's before you even think about the upside of them monetizing said user as they came through the journey. So look, hopefully that just gives a somewhat answer to the question here, where you can see the economics, why Concordium are bringing down the cost base, increasing the revenue profile, and actually helping attract new customers for the PSP or the payment provider as well. So hopefully that answers the question.
I think it does. Sorry, I was looking. Everything seems to be popping up. So the bear might not be here. So once again, when Ledger live? That's a great question. Yeah, Pete, when Ledger live?
When Ledger Live Q1 26. That's kind of where we're going. They're integrating it as we
You
speak.
always give short answers.
Do
Do
you want me to go into the code?
That's Ledger Live, and then like Ledger, of course, holding CCDs and the PLPs and stuff. And then what's the last one? There's another thing, right?
Integration wise.
Yeah. The enterprise piece, of course. Is your KPI measured in TVL? If so, how much in 2026? Or market cap? If so, what rank or price? If so, how many X's? Will we see TradFi running on Concordium in Q1 2026? I mean, God, you know what? This is a great question. Like I cannot, it's obvious that I can't give you an answer with regards to what the price is going to do, right? I have no bloody clue what the price is going to do. If we're hitting this home and you tell your friends about what Concordium is actually doing and it starts to hitting off, plus all the use cases going live, plus all the wallet and ecosystem partners pushing live over the course of Q1, don't know where this is going to go. TVL is an important one, right? I want to touch on TVL because this is still one of those relicts of how people actually say that a chain is viable. Now, you've heard, maybe if you look, just Google Concordium Spico, right? The tokenized Spico. I'm constantly saying it wrong. Mike, how is it pronounced?
Spico. You got it right the first time.
I got it right. Those are, for us, for me, it's extremely important. When I talked about what I said earlier about this time value of money stuff, that if you break into a use case and give those yield-bearing stable coins a use case finally, right? Finally, because right now they don't have one. If you give them a use case, TVL is going to go through the roof. People are scrambling like crazy, and this is also where most of the money goes in this wonderful world that we call crypto, of like, because the project is expecting a lot of TVL, coin price goes up, I sell some coin in order to stick it back into the TVL, and I kind of create like the AI circle right now. What we want to do here is to have true TVL on the premise of use cases outside of a crypto native world. So if you think of a tokenized money market fund in its purest form, in its simplest form, a tokenized money market fund right now for an institutional investor, that would be the only one, because there is no secondary market. There is no BIDL BTC pair, interestingly, and nobody asked themselves the question why. Ultimately, it comes down to the fact that once the markets are choppy, the big boys that Mike and myself specifically know from the copper times, when they're risk off, they just stick it into something that bears them a yield. But you have to ask yourself the question, does it make sense to have it in a token form if there is no proper use case? Or for all those big institutions that they just pick up the phone and basically go, hi, JP, I'm buying your money market fund. Never mind the tokenized version of it. Do you see what I mean? So if you give them, like, for example, the example with rental agreements, the example like trade finance and anything else that you can kind of think of where the time value of money makes sense, where you would like to receive a yield because it takes time to complete the transaction, TVL will go through the roof. So if I'm right, Concordium should be the chain that has the biggest TVL out of the gate by a mile. Simply because you're able, in order to give a specific token that right now doesn't really have any use, apart from bearing a yield, an actual use case in the real world. That's the only thing that we've been focused on, that we've said very clearly from day one, which is one of the reasons of why we built the PLTs, away from smart contract vulnerabilities, all the way down to the locking mechanisms, which then also allows you in order to do new way of DeFi, where assets don't sit in a smart contract, right? They sit in your wallet, are just locked, right? So my KPI is not TVL as such. My KPI and our KPI here at Concordium is real world use cases and user adoption and user acquisition. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And it's a call upon the entire industry in order to figure out the tooling, just like I'm going to give out a shout out to my old partner, Dimitri, like Bron, trying to kind of step away from the idea of having mnemonic seed phrases. If you kind of abstract that complexity away and allow users to interact in a cool, non-scary way, you get adoption. Everything else is then different people needing to build different things. So will TradFi run on Concordium in Q1? I wish, because if they wake up, there is no other viable option. We're just working on it. It needs to be step by step. For Concordium, 2026 will be the year off. For CCD, 2026 will be the year off. Who wants to? Do you guys? I think this sounds like a question that I think everybody should answer. I'm going to start with Varun.
Oh, cool. This time I get to go first.
Yes,
Fantastic.
because you were talking about it. So
He's gonna take all the answers.
Yeah. I think both the fill in the blanks is success. That's pretty much it.
Wow, you're boring, but fair
I
enough.
know. That's why I'm last always.
Yeah, Mike, you're gonna be last again. So, request denied.
I mean,
Mikey?
we already kind of answered this, right? You know, what's 2026 all about? It's adoption for us. So I'm going to say adoption.
That's what I was gonna say.
bloody took it away from me.
Adoption. And
Yeah. No. But Pete?
me?
I'm
Bill.
really expecting you to give
Bill.
I want you to
Bill.
give a price target. I want you to give a price target for CCD.
1 million. Adoption
yeah.
in the form of build.
Yeah. 2026 will be like, if you want to, like, if you use a different word than adoption, for me it's all about users away from complex DeFi stuff, and actually very simple privacy preserving age verification, for example. That's really what it comes down to for me. And if you solve for that, which we're in a prime position to do, and also, by the way that, you know, something that Pete didn't mention, right? For example, one guy, how many people were at the hackathon? Like 280 people? 300. Like one of those engineers built something very cool, which was basically allowing Concordium to be the verification layer for any chain out there. Why would you need to build something else? You want to be, because you're an ETH maxi? Sure. Interact in the ecosystem with Ethereum. Use Concordium in order to verify yourself in a privacy preserving way. You want to do the same with Solana? You want to do the same with Nia? Any chain out there, be my guest. Do it, right? Those are all the things that we're not talking about in a town hall in much depth. And maybe we should do certain things maybe around this. But like, look, 2026 is, let me check real quick of like what the markets are doing. This is great. So we seemingly need to do town halls more often. Bitcoin's really up. ETH as well. Isn't that wonderful? So look, yeah, thank you very much for dialing in. I also know that a lot of the team is here. And I just wanted to say, like, you know, since this is an end of year town hall, I'm extremely proud of what you've done. The teams have worked incredible in order to get something like this out of the gate. And anybody that just looks up CCD right now, look at the performance over the last 4 years and look at it, what happened this year. Just look at it. And then go and Google for a very, very old CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko yourself to death in order to try and find a project that has been seen to be dead, that there is proper life in this. And if you puzzle those things together, you will come to your own conclusions. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I wanted to say how excited I am for 2026. I think I'm speaking for you guys too. I'm extremely excited to actually see all the stuff that by now we only announced up until now, to the stuff to actually go live, and what impact that will have. But yeah, I'm very grateful also to the entire community to engage. Let it grow. Tell your friends, nothing to be embarrassed about, that you like Concordium. And you maybe have to like take an extra 5-minute swing in order to explain it to people, but good luck trying to explain what Ethereum is all about. I think you try to explain what Concordium is all about, it should be easier. So yeah, with that, thank you. If we don't hear each other, there is loads of podcasts coming out and all sorts before year end. I wish you Merry Christmas with your families, even though we've got a shit ton to do. So boys, Christmas is cancelled. It ultimately, yeah, Merry Christmas. Let the year, you know, end the way that it started for us specifically, and let it grow. Ultimately, adoption. And with that, yeah, thank you very much, and hopefully, well, speak to you very, very soon.